Gail? Hey, how you doing? Good. Listen, Geauga County Sheriff's Office. We just want to see if we can talk to you for a couple of minutes.
No, yeah.
Okay. You have any idea what we want to talk to you about? Because I kind of think you might.
Well, my parents said that you were at their house.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think that's about?
It was about a baby.
Yeah. What about?
A baby that was left.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about it?
The baby she mentioned here was her own newborn son, who she left to die in the freezing cold woods within hours of him being born. The woman you have just seen was Gail Eastwood-Ritchey, a 49-year-old wife and mother of 3 who lived in Euclid, Ohio. But as you go through this video, you will unravel a whole new side to this innocent-looking woman. In March 1993, a month before she turned 23 years old, she tossed her newborn baby boy in a discreet location on the side of Sidley Road in Geauga County, Ohio. She heartlessly wrapped the child in a garbage bag a few moments after he was born and left him in a remote area, hidden from unsuspecting passing vehicles. On March 25, 1993, 2 newspaper delivery women found him and called the police.
Just hope they find who did it. I hope they're punished. Because there are a lot of people out there that want babies. They could have gave it up for adoption or something.
The child was left with no chance to survive and unfortunately was found dead. But this stirred up very strong emotions in the people of the county, and the case became very popular at the time. Even the sheriff who worked on the case at the time was devastated beyond measure.
The first thing got to me when I looked at it, I said, why? How? We wanted to know, was the child alive or was it born dead?
The community even came forward and raised funds in order to have a proper funeral and tombstone for the baby. And since the baby had no identity, the tombstone called him Geauga's child, named after the county that claimed him as their own. All efforts were made to locate the mother of the child, but to no avail, and the case went cold. But this was until 2019, when familial DNA testing brought about big revelations. By this time, Gail was happily married to her husband, Mark Ritchey, who had been her boyfriend at the time of the crime and had also been the father of the baby. The DNA of Geauga's child was put through a genetic genealogy study, and the police quickly focused on the possible mother and visited her home for further inquiry.
We just want to see if we can talk to you for a couple of minutes.
No, yeah.
Okay.
It was about a baby.
Yeah. What about?
A baby that was left.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about it? We're not here to judge you, Gail. We don't know what was going on at the time. We don't want to speculate either, okay? So I don't think you want us to speculate. We're not here to arrest you, okay? We are here to take your DNA, okay? And we would like for you to tell us your side of the story, because we'd like to know. As of right now, you're not under arrest. You're not going to be arrested today. But we want to know what was going on. I think after 26 years, it's time. Don't you? It's had to be weighing on you.
Should we go inside?
Well, what we'd like to do is get your DNA, okay? And then we would like for you to come back to our sheriff's office so that we can talk. You're not being arrested, okay? But we need to sit down and we need to hear your side of the story. Okay? All right, so I'm going to get my stuff real quick. We're going to take your DNA here. I have a signed search warrant from a Geauga County Criminal Police judge. Okay, and I will give you a copy of that warrant. You will have a copy for you to keep. The DNA process is a very non-invasive process. I'm sure your parents probably told you. Just swipe a Q-tip on the inside of your mouth. We'll collect it real quick. Now we'll go back to the sheriff's office, and at some point today we'll bring you back here, okay?
So far, the officers had only suspected her, but her reaction was a confirmation of her culpability. They still do a direct DNA test of her and Geauga's child to confirm that Gail was, in fact, the mother. She looked like she was finally revisiting the time she discarded her newborn child 26 years ago. To the detective's surprise, the couple only lived half an hour away from where the baby was found.
You okay? Alright, my partner is coming in. Good. Well, is there anything else we can get you? Do you need to use the facilities or anything, Gail? No, you're sure you're okay? There's some tissues there for you. As we indicated, Gail, at the house, our intention is at this point not to arrest you. You're not under arrest, okay? And we would like to get your side of the story, though. We just didn't want to do it there in your house if your kids come in or anything. That's just not a good situation, obviously, with the topic at hand. But I do need to, because we brought you back here, I want to go over a couple of things. Again, at this point, you're not under arrest. Okay, you are free to leave. Okay, so I'm going to just read you your rights real quick. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say will be used against you in court of law. You have the right to an attorney. We'll provide one for you free before any questioning if you desire. You can stop answering questions anytime. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
And with that being said, we do appreciate your cooperation.
Even before bringing Gail in for questioning, officers make it a point to assure her that they only wish to find out the truth and not judge her. The topic at hand is very sensitive. There could be many reasons why Gail did what she did in 1993, and the detectives hope an empathetic approach will allow her to open up more. The detectives have to explore the possibility that Gail may have been in a vulnerable position herself when she abandoned her child.
I was at work. I was a nanny for a family in Shaker Heights. I was waiting for them to come home from school. I hadn't been feeling well at all that day. The next thing I knew, I was giving birth to a baby in the toilet. I didn't know what to do. The kids hadn't gotten home from school yet.
Okay.
The only thing I could think of was to put the baby in a bag. I have no idea what this was. I never looked at it. I took it out to my car and placed it in the trunk. And I cleaned up the bathroom.
Was the baby still in the bag at that time? Or did you put it in something else?
But
Like a garbage bag? Okay.
Yep. And then I went home.
Where were you living at the time?
With my parents.
Okay.
I was still
on
at
Harwich there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what to do. No one knew. Then we had and I don't know the time frame from when to when, but camps that were associated with koinonia out here. I came out with our youth group for a weekend. And I didn't. I got in my car. I left the camp for a while. I got in my car.
From Camp Koinonia?
Yes.
I have trouble sitting there. I apologize.
Yes. I got in my car and just drove. I don't know where I ended up. And I just ended up stopping on a road. I don't know which road. And I took the bag out of the trunk. And I laid it in the woods.
This is a woman who is speaking about throwing away her newborn baby. But you'll not see any expressions of grief or guilt unless she talks about herself. It's shocking that she has been described as a loving mother to her 3 children when she was capable of such a monstrous act towards her first child. In the clip shown, she cries a little, but that is not in relation to the baby. Rather, it's because she's looking back and feeling sorry for herself, as she did not know what to do. When it comes to the baby, she couldn't care less. Gail does not even remember the day her child was born, regardless of what she went on to do with him. Geauga's child was a little boy, but she seems to have wiped the child from her memory.
I didn't know what to do.
About how far from the camp were you? Remember?
I have no idea. I really don't know. I don't. Other than driving to the camp, I really don't.
You couldn't go too far because you didn't know the road, so how would you get back, right?
I guess.
Was anybody with you in the car?
No.
No.
I was by myself.
About how far off the road do you remember you went? Like with the bag, like how far from the roadway you would have went? Or was there anything specific by there?
Nothing specific, no.
Nothing that stands out to you or anything?
No. I remember stopping on the road. There was a lot of snow. I do remember a lot of snow. And I walked in as far as I could, and I left the back.
Did you ever follow or read any stories or anything, in the news or seeing news clipping, stories or anything like that about anything?
I did not.
No.
I did not know the baby was found.
Okay. At what point do you know that the baby was found? Was it recently? Was it a long time ago? Or
no? You were at my parents,
so that's the first time that you had known that the baby was found?
That a baby was found.
Now getting back to, you said you were at this family's house in Shaker Heights when the baby was born, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember their name or where they lived at?
I do.
Okay. What was their name?
I'd rather not.
And why is that?
Just so
Well, you gotta understand, Gail, we need
okay.
to kind of verify some things, and I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but, obviously what you've told us, but we need to go back and try to verify some of those things. It's been a long time, so, and you said it was during the week, correct? Because the kids weren't home from school yet?
That is correct.
And so you were kind of a nanny in the afternoon?
I was a nanny all day.
All day, okay. But you said some of the kids went to school?
There were 2 children.
There's 2 children, and they would go off to school?
Yes.
And then what time would they come home from school?
3:30.
And you would stay till about what time?
6, usually 6.
6 o'clock, and then you would go, and that's when you went home from there?
Yep.
Okay. So, do you remember what day it was? Was it Thursday maybe, or Friday?
I honestly don't remember the day or the month.
But you said you went to a weekend camp that weekend, right?
I don't know if it was that weekend. It may have been a whole week.
Okay.
Gail is upfront when giving information about herself, but the detectives find it difficult to get her cooperation when they ask about other people's statements. She refuses to give the information of the family she babysat for at the time because she does not wish to embarrass herself.
How long before you moved into that house do you say the baby was born? Was it months, weeks, years?
Well, it was in the winter.
It was in winter? So was it like that winter before you moved in? Or was it a couple winters before?
It may have been January of that year. I don't.
But you think it was that year in 93 when you moved into the house?
I don't remember what year it was.
Okay. But it was cold and snowy?
I guess it could have been at the end of 92, maybe December of 92, but the kids would have been home for Christmas break, so it must have been January of 93.
January of 93, somewhere around there that the baby was actually born.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you active with anybody else besides Mark prior to that?
I was not.
No. So you're confident that Mark is the father?
Her father, yeah.
Okay. Now getting back to the like how the baby was born and placed in the bag.
I did not cut it.
Well, how did that umbilical cord get cut then?
I don't know. I didn't cut it.
You didn't cut it?
No.
You're positive of that?
I am.
I mean, obviously we're talking about 26 years, so there's, as you said, some things that you're not real.
Yes, I
sure.
understand.
But there's no possible way that you cut that umbilical cord.
I'm almost certain I didn't.
Is it possible, or are you positive that you didn't cut that umbilical cord? Because there's a couple of things, Gail, you've told us a lot, but there's a couple of things that I am kind of struggling with. And some of that is to do with the baby, because a full autopsy was done. The baby was found. Obviously, that's clear now. And the umbilical cord was cut. Okay. And the coroner's report can show that the baby was born alive.
Okay.
And that the baby had taken breaths. Okay. So that tells me that the baby was moving, and there had to be some type of screaming or something that you heard or saw.
This case is very challenging for the detectives because more than 2 decades have already passed and they have limited physical evidence. So it's necessary they align the old evidence with Gail's testimony. Geauga's child was found with a severed umbilical cord, and according to forensic evidence, he was alive at birth. Another indicator was the presence of oxygen in the lungs. A common practice to see if a child was alive at birth is to float their lungs in water. If they float, then it means oxygen content was present, meaning the child was alive. But Gail's statement differs from the evidence at this point. A simple explanation is that the umbilical cord may have shed off while the animal dragged the corpse towards the road. And despite the lungs having oxygen and the baby being alive, the cause of inaudible cries could have been a birth defect. This explains why the child was breathing and still could not make a sound. This proves the baby was alive at the time of the birth and allows the officers to press charges for murder.
I don't know if that's just something that you don't want to remember, obviously due to the circumstances.
It's possible, but I really don't remember it ever making a sound.
How about in the bag? Was it still moving around in the bag? Or had it kind of maybe drowned in the toilet? Or was it still kind of moving around in the bag? Well, I can tell you it didn't drown in the toilet because it didn't have water in its lungs.
No, I don't think it stayed in the toilet long before I put it in the bag.
But even in the bag, it's got some oxygen in there. It's breathing. It's taking some breaths. It's probably moving. It's got to be making some kind of noise.
I really don't remember it making noise. I really don't.
Do you remember the bag making any noise? Was the bag moving, crinkling?
Not that I'm aware of. I suppose it could have been when I put it in the car.
Mm-hmm. But either in the toilet or when you quickly put it in the bag, it had to be making some kind of noise or moving around. But ultimately, due to your condition at the time, your intention was no matter what, you weren't going to keep this baby.
I didn't know what to do.
Didn't know what to do. But because of those circumstances, you didn't know what to do. Was it because you were young, because you weren't married? You're afraid to tell your parents. I understand you're Baptist.
I was definitely afraid to tell my parents. My father was very adamant about not having children before you're married. Because the sister and nieces all had children and didn't want that.
I can understand that.
Stereotype.
What else was going through your mind at the time? Why you said that, I don't know what to do, I'm not keeping this baby. What else was going through your mind at the time?
Well, I think part of it was more just where I was at.
Mm-hmm.
And worried about the kids coming home. And I didn't know what to do.
The smallest differences within her statement can lead to big differences in her prosecution. If she knew the baby was alive after birthing him, that would lead to second-degree murder charges. However, if she claims in the interrogation that she did not know that, then it could lead to a more lenient charge. So far, the motive that Gail is trying to present is the one that detectives expected. It would make sense at the time that a child outside of wedlock would not have been approved.
But you had known for some time that you were pregnant. At least a couple months when you're mentioning and you're afraid to tell your parents that you were pregnant. So you had known for some time that you were pregnant.
Yeah.
So at least for a couple months, correct? Can I say that? You said initially you didn't know you were pregnant. You were still having your menstrual cycles, and that does happen.
I think because of that, I didn't know how far along I was.
But you hadn't told anybody.
I had not.
And you weren't sure what to do.
I was not.
And did you intend on having the baby, or what were your intentions? Should have kind of come unexpectedly that day, but it sounds like you had made your mind up that you weren't in the right spot at the time. You weren't telling anybody. This was kind of what you were planning on doing, for lack of better words.
I suppose.
Had you planned on? What were your plans when you found out you're pregnant?
I don't know. I don't know what. I don't remember. I don't know what my intentions were.
Were you gonna? At least for some period of time, you know you're pregnant and you're gonna keep this baby, or you're gonna tell Mark at some point. Or you're just going to get rid of it and act like it never happened?
I'm not sure. I've never been good with confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've always tended to keep things to myself to avoid confrontation. So I'm not sure what I don't know if I ever had a plan or what I was going to do, or I don't remember.
What do you think Mark would have said if you would have told him at the time?
I'm not sure.
Had you thought about that? Like what you're going to tell Mark, or when the baby came?
I don't even know if I thought about it. I don't know. I don't know if I was going to tell him, or
did you think there was going to be confrontation with him when you told him?
not in a bad way, but I've always had trouble dealing with situations.
If the murder was planned, this changes everything in the interrogation. The role of the investigation is to ensure that they're getting all the relevant information and that nothing is left out. But the fact that Gail was menstruating for some months even after getting pregnant is in her favor. It's possible that she did not expect to deliver the child when she did and discarded the baby because she was shocked and ill-prepared. If that was the case, it's possible that the sudden surge of stress may have caused her to shut down and become detached. However, it's hard to ignore her reaction as she makes her statement. She has had a lot of time to process her crime, and even now, confronted by her past, she lacks remorse. She piercingly looks into the eyes of the interrogators, and she gives the most bleak details of the day.
So for basically the last 26 years, you've just kind of kept this bottled up inside?
Yeah.
Is there anybody that you've confided in or knew that you were pregnant? Or
I have not.
Nobody knew that you were pregnant?
Nobody knew I was pregnant.
You've never told anybody about it?
Never told anyone about it.
How about Mark? How do you think he's going to deal with finding out what happened?
I'm not sure.
What do you think he's going to say about it?
I'm not sure.
How do you think he should go about finding out?
Well, I'm hoping that I can tell him.
Okay. And what would you say to him?
I think I would just go through what we just went through and tell him.
And you're not sure how he's going to take that?
Sure, he'll be upset.
Do you think he deserved any decision back then? Or any right to know and be a part of that decision that you made for the two of you?
Back then, I didn't know what to do. Today, it's a whole different.
I understand that you may have made a different choice knowing what you know now, but do you think that it doesn't really answer the question? Do you think that he deserved the right to have a choice in that decision that you made for the two of you?
Yeah.
What do you think his choice would have been back then if he would have known?
May have been accepting of it.
So he wasn't really given that opportunity.
Yeah.
Is it because he would have wanted you to keep it?
No.
Yeah. So you think he would have wanted you to keep it?
Probably.
detectives have realized that Mark is Gail's stress point. Any extraction of information can be done by leveraging Mark's name. For 26 years, Gail has kept the biggest secret imaginable, but she does not break down. One of the few instances in which we see a reaction from her is when she's afraid that she may upset Mark with her actions. She mentions that in her mind, the worst case scenario while abandoning her child back then was Mark's reaction, and that he may have left her had she not done what she went on to do to the baby. She confesses that she regrets not telling Mark about the birth, but not because she's guilty, but rather because she's scared that he will leave her now that he hears about what she did. Even though she tries to make Mark look like the motivation behind her killing, that is barely a passable excuse for what she's done.
Obviously, at that time, you guys had to be talking about some type of a future together. Because just a few short months later, you kind of moved in together, and within a year and a half, you're getting married, so there had to be some kind of talk.
So we did purchase the house in '93, but he never let on that he was gonna. I had no idea that he was gonna propose to me in December of '93.
So it wasn't even something that you guys had talked about having a future and kids, and never came up in conversation. It just kind of came up out of the blue.
Right. I mean, we had talked about it, but he was, because of purchasing the house, just felt like it wasn't time that he could purchase a ring or anything like that.
Financially, he was kind of strapped.
Yes, he felt strapped.
Did it kind of come up in conversation
Yes,
while you guys were dating?
I'm sure it did, yes.
And what was, was he always of the opinion he wanted like a large family, or what did you two talk about?
I think we were both agreed that we thought 3 children was a good, nice number of kids.
So you both had wanted kids?
Yes.
And talked about having a couple, at least 3.
Yes.
It was a good number, so.
Yes.
And they had come up throughout your dating?
Periodically. I mean, it wasn't point of conversation all the time.
No, I'm sure it wouldn't be. But you guys talked about having a future together and,
yes,
and raising a family.
Yes.
So it seemed like you wanted to have kids.
Yes.
And eventually you did have kids.
Yes.
So again, what is it that was going through your mind there in March? That made you think if this was coming up in conversation and you guys were talking about having a future and getting married and having 3 kids, what is it that he wants kids? When you guys are dating, you're talking about it in the future. What is it that made you not want to tell him?
I was scared. I was scared to what my father would think.
The motive is already unclear, but the more information Gail shares, the less her statements make sense. It's clear that Mark and her wanted to go on having children, and they were planning a future together, so why not just tell him about the pregnancy? It seems legitimate for her to be afraid of her father because a child outside wedlock would have been strongly criticized at that time. But when she gave birth, she was already 22 years old, turning 23 in a month. She was independent enough to raise a child despite disapproval from her family. The detectives will have to inquire further if they need a better understanding of the matter.
Other than I was afraid of losing him because of it.
But again, he's talking about that again. He wants to have kids.
I understand.
I would think most women would think opposite, that it was a way to keep him. That it would almost be a way to keep him. We have a child together, and it's kind of a way to. But I don't understand how that would make you afraid to lose him. You guys have had a relationship for several years. You're in a relationship.
Yes. We were in a relationship. I was afraid. my father finding out. That's all I can think of. I was afraid of losing him. I was never felt certain that he loved me.
I can understand it.
Never the prettiest girl. I wasn't skinny. I wasn't the smartest girl. I never thought highly of myself.
Was there a concern that it could be somebody else's?
No.
I could see that if you're worried that, maybe it was somebody else's and you're afraid to tell them.
Not at all.
I just really struggle with that, Gail, seeing that, just in a few months you guys are moving in and getting married.
Well, we weren't even looking at houses.
I understand that, but again, it had to be coming up in conversation, even if it's just occasionally. So you guys are building a relationship and been together.
Yeah, but it took me a long time to feel truly loved by him.
From the facts given by Gail and Mark's testimony, there seems to be no reason why Mark would leave her at the news of a child. As mentioned earlier, not only did he want children, but announcing an unexpected pregnancy is often a sure-shot way of solidifying an already serious relationship with another person. This would almost certainly have ensured a marriage between the couple at the time of the crime. But when the detectives explore that possibility, Gail opens up about her insecurities, and that fits into the puzzle of her motive. She had low self-esteem and already did not believe that Mark truly loved her or that she was attractive. Most likely, at that time, she did not want to do anything that would cause Mark to leave her. Additionally, it's interesting that the thought of her insecurities makes her cry, but not the torment that she put her baby through.
Was there ever a time prior to the incident we're talking about today that you ever thought you could have been pregnant?
No.
You said that you and your husband, did you like him when you were 16? Did you guys date a little bit when you were 16?
We did.
What caused you guys to separate? You said you separated for a while.
Didn't ask me out anymore.
Okay, so you went on like a couple dates, or were you guys kind of, exclusively seeing each other?
Oh, yeah, no, just a couple dates.
On a couple dates?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You guys have like an argument or a disagreement over something specific?
No, he was never called to ask me out again. And then I reached out to him.
After a period of time?
Mm-hmm.
And how long was that period of time?
Oh, I don't know. I was 17.
What made you reach out to him?
Well, I liked him.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious if he'd go back out with me again.
And you said, obviously, during the time around this event and before that, you were sexually active with your husband now, your boyfriend at the time. When were you guys first active?
Not till maybe 18.
When you were 18?
Yeah.
Okay.
In light of new information, the way the prosecution can proceed has changed. According to Mark, Gail had told him about a pregnancy, but this was way before 1993, when Geauga's child was found. He also told them that Gail had been seeing a doctor regularly for the same reason. He knew this for a fact and told the detectives that at the time, he had been regularly taking updates from Gail for the same. But according to Gail, not only had she never been pregnant before 1993, but Mark was also not aware of this. This makes the detectives believe that Gail must have rendered the same fate to another innocent life. But if she did that once before, it would also prove that the murder of Geauga's child was premeditated. If she had done this before, then this would significantly change her prison sentence. She would no longer be able to defend herself with the argument that it was due to shock that she acted in such a cold and detached manner.
What about his family? Are they...
Oh, God. Can only imagine. We have a wonderful family.
But how do you think they're going to react? Would you be concerned for your safety from their family?
Not my safety, no.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think I'll ever be spoken to again.
Where do you think the safest place for you would be right now?
We're not so sure it would be back with Mark. I'm not saying it's not safe, but we're not sure how he's going to deal with that. This is something, obviously you've known this and battled with it for 26 years. This is something that has been literally dropped in his lap today out of nowhere. And I don't know how he's going to react to that. And we're concerned for him and for you. We have no intentions of running out of here telling anybody what the crux of our conversation was today. However, you have to understand, over the last 26 years, this was a very big case. And in that regard, I don't know how you didn't know about it. There's been news stories, newspaper articles, a news story that some of the original investigators did on the news. It was probably a 12, 15-minute article that they did on the news. So this is something that was and is something today very big in the community here in Geauga County. There's people that, like we said, donated clothes. They donated the burial expenses. There's a headstone.
Yeah, there's a headstone and a memorial. They did a ceremony and did a headstone and memorial. And your child is referred to as Geauga's baby.
Because so many members of the community donated different things for your child. And they maintain that gravestone. So this is something that is very big in the community. And with that being said, we are concerned for your welfare and what is the best place for you. So where do you think the best place would it be? With your sister, maybe?
Probably not.
No. Why do you think that? We have not told her. We did have a search warrant for her DNA as well, but we did not execute that today. So we have not made contact with her. We've only made contact with you and your husband today.
At this point, she's extremely triggered because now for a while, they have been talking about how her husband will react. And from the start, that has been the most dire consequence for her. But Gail is not prepared for what's coming next. She has not even started thinking about the reaction from the community. This is the same community that was so involved with the baby from the minute it was found. They have been stewing in anger for years, and finally the culprit had been identified. They did not know that this criminal had been living amongst them all along. The detectives fear for her safety as she will not be arrested for now. They expect a very aggressive reaction from the community.
Is the fact that obviously now we had a search warrant for your DNA. All right, and we have your DNA, and that is not only going to be compared into the child, but also into the database. And there are many, unfortunately, other cases out there. And your DNA is going to be in the system. It's going to be compared to all those cases. And now is the time, if there is anything else, that you need to get it out there. You've come, clean with this, what's happened here. You've told us what's happened. If there is anything else that your DNA is going to link you to, because unfortunately there are other baby cases that happened, and those are still open. And then there's other homicide cases here in Geauga County and in Asheville County and Lake County. And now that we have your DNA, it's going to be compared to all those cases. It's going to be in that system. So if there is any other issues out there that we need to talk about, now is the time to do it. Because I'm not getting warm and fuzzy that this isn't the only time. That there may be some more times. And it's going to be compared to all those other cases, Gail. And the last thing you want to do is say that you came in here and be honest with us because, part of what happens is, truth in sentencing and showing genuine remorse and coming clean. And if there are other issues, now's the time that we need to talk about them. And I truly believe that that there is other issues. And we're here to listen. We're not here to judge you. We're not yelling and screaming. But you know and I know this isn't the only time. That there's more times that this has happened. And now is the time that you need to tell us about those, Gail. How many other times has this happened?
One other time.
One other time? And when was that? Was it before or after this child?
Before.
Before. Is that what Mark was talking about in 1991? Because he had told our investigators in 1991 that there was another pregnancy that he was aware of.
I didn't tell him
Okay.
I was pregnant.
Mm.
So he may have known.
Finally, Gail has confessed to killing a second infant. When the detectives questioned Gail before, they stressed on it because it's their responsibility to explore every angle. However, they did not expect it to be entirely true. There were aspects of Mark's statement that did not fit Gail's confession. Mark was aware of a pregnancy at some point, but it was before 1993. The detectives thought that Mark may have confused the year, and it may be a dead end. But Gail puts that suspicion to rest and confirms the facts of a second murder. The detectives are shocked, but they try to maintain a professional demeanor.
When was this previous pregnancy?
Probably about that time.
About the 1991 time?
How old were you at the time? Would you remember that? Would that be easier to remember?
20, 21,
Okay.
20.
Explain that situation to us.
Tell us what happened. Is it Mark's child as well?
It is.
And tell us what happened on that situation.
Pretty much the same situation, other than I had the baby at his rental house.
And where's his rental house?
It was Euclid.
Euclid? Is that in Harwich?
Hmm?
What street was that on?
No, it's where he was living in 248th Street.
Okay.
He rented from his brother.
Mm-hmm.
He gave birth to it in the toilet.
Is that a boy or a girl?
I don't know.
You don't know.
And I never.
You didn't want to know?
I never looked.
Okay.
I don't know.
What happened after you gave birth to the child?
I did the same thing. Put it in a garbage bag.
And what did you do with the garbage bag?
I left it.
What do you mean you left it? What does that mean, Gail?
I took it and left it over by medical buildings in Euclid.
Where did you leave it exactly?
There, there's a road called Brush Road. Goes up behind very tall medical buildings that are there. And I just left it over in the tall grass.
Kind of like field area you left in the tall grass?
Yeah.
What time of year was this?
Summer. I think it was summer.
Summer, and you think you're 21? Do you remember what year it would have been?
Gail's family and close friends spoke highly of her and were in disbelief that she was capable of this. They spoke about her good temperament and how dedicated she was to her role as a wife and a mother. People were stunned when they heard that she killed not one, but 2 of her babies. This first baby, too, was wrapped in a garbage bag right after birth and thrown out in the wild like its unnamed sibling. Geauga's child had a sibling, one that met a similar fate. And the worst part is that at least Geauga's child was loved and remembered, even if it was by strangers. It's been so long since the first infant was dumped that the likelihood of finding even the remains of the baby is near impossible. Mark, their 3 children, and other family members will now have to live with the fact that they will never be whole. Part of their family was kept a secret from them, a decision that Gail took alone.
Okay, because like Detective Seaman explained to you, your DNA will hit the database in a matter of days. And it's going to connect to all those files, all those missing unidentified persons. So if you're not being honest with us, we're going to know. So now is your chance to be able to get on the front end of this. There's nothing else you need to tell us.
No.
Okay.
Was there a recall?
You forgotten another incident?
No, I don't think so.
Can you kind of draw us how that like shows where like maybe where Richmond and Brush is?
Okay, this is
We're going to get an overview.
Okay. Thank you.
um,
I brought you a couple extras. Oh.
didn't make enough room for 2 buildings.
Oh, that's right.
One,
Is it by that first building?
I think so.
So the baby was here.
Yeah, somewhere in that.
So this is part of Brush Road, or is this like a driveway for the building?
Oh, this is brush, and that's the driveway.
All right, so that's a driveway right there, and the building's here, and the other building is like right here.
Yeah.
All right, was there anything over in this field at all?
No, just really tall grass. There were houses here.
There were houses kind of behind here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Was there anything else distinguishable about the area?
No, that's what it is.
So, and you birthed that child as a full-term baby?
I believe so.
But it looked full-term?
I don't think I even looked at it.
Well, you had to, I mean, you grabbed it, you moved it, you had to have seen it. Whether or not you're blocking that out of your memory because you don't want to see it, but you did see it.
Okay.
And, but it was, you believe it was a full-term baby? Not sure. Well,
I'm not sure.
You went into like normal labor, right?
I think so.
Right. And that was in 1991.
Yeah.
And how do you know the difference between that child and the child that we found? I mean, what is so distinguishable? Was it because of the location? That's what reminded you of, you know, the child that you birthed on 248th and the child that you birthed at the home in Chicker Heights? But it's very similar in nature how it happened, right?
Yeah.
Though Geauga's baby went without justice for 26 years, fortunately there was enough forensic evidence to prove the facts of the case. Advancements in DNA testing brought Gail, the culprit, in front of the jury, and the fact that the baby had been alive after he was born was enough to present this as a murder. The remains of the first child were not found, and hence they were not presented. The decision was made to not reference the first baby so it could not influence the jury. Finally, 51-year-old Gail Eastwood-Ritchey was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 15 years on May 24, 2022. Judge Andre, who gave the ruling on her case, had the following to say in the end.
Your wrongful efforts to conceal what happened in February 1993 did buy you 29 years of normal life where you got the chance to get married, raise children, and do some good works. But ultimately you gained that time on the back of a helpless infant whose body you concealed in the woods. Ironically, Geauga's child did more for you than you ever did for him, probably. Your freedom is over. It is finally time to atone for these awful, unnecessary deeds committed 3 decades ago. So I sentence you to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 15 years.
The county of Geauga was heartbroken when they discovered an infant on the side of the road in 1993. There were numerous possibilities as to what brought this child to an untimely fate, but at least there was hope that maybe, somewhere out there, a mother missed her child. But this community of big-hearted people took it in as their own. But when the truth came out, it was worse than their imagination. A monster of a mother who did not care enough to look at the baby, let alone name it. Do you think that Gail got the sentence she deserved, or perhaps do you think she was the victim after all? Share your thoughts below. And if you have any such cases that you want us to cover, add them in the comments section below. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more such content. We hope to see you watching the next video on our channel.